tutorial is going to cover 2D arrays, also known as matrices. Before we begin, make sure that you have Java and the Java JDK downloaded on your computer. You can run java-version in your terminal to check. Also, make sure that you have the IntelliJ downloaded on your computer. It suggests that you watch the previous Java tutorials in this same playlist. What is a 2D array? A 2D array, also known as a matrix, is an array of arrays. Matrices in Java are row major, which means they are indexed first by row and then by column. 2D arrays, like normal arrays, are zero indexed. So here's some matrix code. An empty initialization of a 3x4 array looks like this. And this means it has 3 rows and 4 columns. Accessing a single row, row 0, looks like this. So the first row is an integer array, and it's gotten by mat0. Accessing a single element, row 1, column 2, looks like this, with 2 sets of braces, and then that gets you a single integer. And then setting a single element, row 0, column 2, looks like this. So now row 1, column 2 is 12. So here is a visual representation of a 2D array. This one has 3 rows and 4 columns, with the first row and column being at 0. So this whole thing would be the matrix mat. This first row here would be mat0. And this element here would be mat1, 2. So getting the number of rows and columns. Getting the number of rows, you can do mat.length. And then to get the number of columns in row 0, you can do mat0.length. So this first one gets you the number of rows, and the second one gets you the number of columns in a specific row. Now normally, matrices would have the same number of rows as columns. They would have the same number of columns in every row. But you can also have what's called a jagged matrix, which is a matrix where not all the rows have the same number of columns. You can create a jagged matrix by creating an explicit matrix like below. So you can see here this first row has 3 elements, the second row has 5, and this third row only has 2. So that will give you a jagged matrix where every row has a different number of columns. When to use a 2D array? 2D arrays are used when you need to represent something in 2D, like a game of checkers or a crossword puzzle. Exercises. Let me get this set up for exercises. Split the screen. Let's get a new we want a new package. We're going to call this matrices. And then new Java class that I'm going to call matrix exercises. Double click to make that left pane go away. Make it a little bit bigger. First thing, like always, we're going to do public static void main string args. Okay. So the first thing we're going to do is write a method to find the max value in a 2D array of integers. So for that would be public static int max value in matrix. It's going to take in an int. So see, I have 2 sets of braces. That's because it's a matrix, mat. So when finding the max value of something, you're always going to start out with the first value that you think the max might be. So in this case, it's going to be int max equals integer.min value. And min value is just the smallest value that an integer can be in the system. So in this case, max is going to start out as min value, so that anything we come across after that is obviously going to be bigger than that, and we can set it to be the new max. So return max at the bottom there. And now what we want to do is run over everything in the array. So it's going to be for int row equals 0, row less than mat.length, row plus plus, for int call equals 0, call less than mat row dot length, call plus plus, and then we'll say if int current equals mat at row column, and then we'll say if max is less than current, that max equals current. See what I did there? So we're going to run over everything in the matrix and say if the thing I'm looking at currently in the matrix is bigger than my maximum value, go ahead and reset my maximum value to be whatever current is. So up here, let's go ahead and create our array of arrays. There's the first one. Sorry, there's my first row. Let me get this formatted properly. Here's my second one. And here's my last one. So we can obviously tell the biggest thing in this matrix is 6. So we should be getting 6 back from this method. So system.out.println, the max is plus max value in matrix mat. So we're going to do run. We're going to do matrix exercises, and it's thinking. And there we go. The max is 6, just like we expected. Cool. So that's getting the maximum value out of the matrix. Then what's the second exercise? Write a method that finds the sum of values in each column of the 2D array of doubles. The method should return the sum of the columns as an array. So public static int. So we're returning an array of integers. Call sums. And it's taking in the int mat. Okay. So the first thing we're going to do is set up our array that we're going to be returning. And we know that it needs to have the number of columns that this this matrix has. And we're going to assume that every row has the same number of columns in this case. So we're going to say int call sums equals new int, and we want the number of columns. So we're going to say mat 0 dot length, right? And that'll give us one spot in the array for each column. I'm going to return call sums. So now what we want to do is run over everything in the entire array again. So I'm going to go ahead and copy what was here. And I want to say that call sums at column equals plus equals correct. And I can do this from the beginning, remember, because arrays that are of integers are preset to 0 whenever they're first created. So I can go ahead and add to call sums without having to set it to anything first because it's already been preset to 0. So let's see. The sum should be 6 and then 9 and then 7 plus 5 is 12. So 6, 9, 12, 15. Yep. So let's make sure that that's what it is. System.out.println the call sums are plus arrays.toString call sums met. Okay, let's hit the green run button again to get this to run. Yep, 6, 9, 12, 15. Just like we expected. And that was because we went through and just added all the columns together. Exercise number 3. Write a method to print out the elements of a 2D array of ints in row order. So that means row 1 first, then row 2, then row 3 of our example here. So let's see. That'll be public static void print matrix. And it's going to take in the int mat. Oops, misformat there. Okay. So it's just going to simply be the same thing as before, where we run over first the row, then the column. And now we can say system.out.print call some mat row column. And system.out.println between every one. And we want a space between every element that we print. Okay? So let's hit the play button. Oop, I forgot to call this method. Let's run it again. I forgot to put in the matrix that I wanted to print. Oops. Let's hit play again. Ooh, and it printed the matrix just like I expected, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 5, 3, 4, 5, 6. Great. So that's how you would just go through and print out a matrix. And exercise number 5 is to write a method to print out the elements of a 2D array of ints in column order. So this means column 1 first, then column 2, then column 3. So it's like printing a matrix that's been turned onto its side. Okay? So let's see. Public static void print inverted matrix. So for int row equals 0, and you know what? It's int call equals 0, call less than mat 0 dot length. Here we're assuming again that every row has the same number of columns. And then for int row equals 0, row less than mat dot length plus row. We're going to have the same print statement as before. And system.out.print. Okay. Now I need to call this up here. And see, it printed my inverted matrix. I have where my first row is, became my first column, and then my second row became my second column, and my third row became my third column. Great. So that's all the exercises. And the practice for later is to write a program that allows 2 players to play tic-tac-toe against each other. Your implementation should include user input and a 2D array. Your game should stop when one of the players wins or the board is completely filled. Your game should also print the current state of the board after each round of the game. The current state of the board can be formatted however you like. The user should input their move as 2 numbers indicating the row and the column they would like their move to go in. Remember, tic-tac-toe alternates between X's and O's. And that's it. I hope that was helpful.